Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Sunday, February 22nd, 2026. And if you're listening to this in real time, I really hope you're having the kind of Sunday that allows you to just, well, not just, but basically to stop.
Right. Or at least pause for a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Pause.
Yeah.
Because today we are doing something that feels almost counterintuitive for a show that usually tries to cram as much dense information as possible into your brain.
Mm-hmm.
We are slowing things way, way down.
We really are. And honestly, just looking at the news cycle for the last few weeks, I think slowing down isn't just a nice aesthetic idea anymore. It feels like a biological necessity at this point.
Oh, absolutely. I was looking at the stack of sources for today, and I have to say, it is an incredibly eclectic mix. I mean, usually we have a theme that's pretty on the nose, like, here is AI, or here is the new climate bill.
Right, the usual hard news stuff.
Yeah, but today, we have a manifesto from 2010 about something called slow media. We've got fresh reporting from the Los Angeles Blade and the Menton Times about the current reality TV landscape. We have these really dense Reddit threads dissecting dating shows. And to top it all off, we have a deep sociological analysis of what the internet, specifically Lemonade and TikTok, is calling the soft boy aesthetic.
It sounds like a total random grab bag when you just list them out like that.
It really does.
But when you actually stack them up, physically put these sources next to each other, they tell a very cohesive story about where we are culturally right now in 2026.
And that brings me to the hook. The central question I want to pose to you and to everyone listening today is this. Why are millions of people, and I mean literally millions, if you look at the streaming numbers, suddenly turning away from the high-octane, screaming matches, drink-throwing, drama-filled reality TV of the early 2020s?
Oh, yeah.
You know the type I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The Love Island model, the whole, I got a text panic.
The engineered dopamine hits.
Exactly. Yeah. Why are we turning away from that and suddenly obsessing over watching men slowly drink coffee in a snowy house in Hokkaido?
It's a massive shift. I mean, it's almost a complete inversion of what we collectively thought good TV was supposed to be.
It is. We are specifically talking about the explosion of what critics are calling gentle reality TV. And the case study that absolutely everyone is talking about this month is Netflix's The Boyfriend Season 2, which just wrapped up its finale earlier this month on February 3rd.
Right. And our mission today for this deep dive is to connect all these dots. We want to draw a straight line from that academic theory on slow media from, what, over 15 years ago?
Yeah, 2010.
Trace it right through the changing psychological needs of our post-digital society and land on this soft boy aesthetic we see dominating social media in 2026. I think we're going to uncover a really fundamental shift in how we define masculinity and romance.
So what does all this mean for you, the listener? Is it just a fleeting trend?
The aha moment we're aiming for here is that this isn't just about a dating show. It's not just about who dates whom or who breaks up with whom on screen. It represents a global rejection of speedrun culture. We are seeing a real pivot toward sustainability, vulnerability, and simply taking your time.
Speedrun culture. Yeah. I love that framing so much. It feels like we're constantly trying to glitch through life just to get to the end credits.
We really are.
But let's start at the beginning. Let's unpack the theory before we get to the snow in Hokkaido. The first source in our SAC is this academic paper, Diffusion of Slow Media Innovation. When I hear slow media, my brain immediately jumps to slow food. Is there actually a real connection there, or is it just clever branding by academics?
Oh, no, there is a direct documented lineage there. The source material traces this back to a very specific moment in 1986. There was this Italian journalist named Carlo Petrini. He was in Rome, specifically at the Spanish Steps, which is, one of the most beautiful historic spots in the entire world.
Right.
And he sees something that just completely breaks his heart.
What did he see?
McDonald's. The golden arches right there at the bottom of the Spanish Steps.
Oh, the horror.
Yeah.
A McDonald's at the Spanish Steps. That does feel like a massive clash of civilization.
Exactly. For Petrini, it wasn't just, a burger joint opening up. It was a symbol of everything going wrong with modern life. Fast, cheap, standardized, low quality, and completely disconnected from the local culture.
Right, the homogenization of everything.
Yeah. So he started the slow food movement to protest it. That eventually evolved into City-Slow, which are slow cities. And then around 2010, the concept finally migrated to media.
Okay, so if slow food is about, savoring the meal, knowing the farmer, and taking 3 hours to eat dinner with your friends, what exactly is slow media? Because to me, media implies speed. it implies breaking news alerts on your phone.
And that's exactly the tension the movement is addressing. The definition provided in the research is really compelling because it directly challenges that assumption. Slow media isn't just about being physically slow, like watching a YouTube video at half speed.
Right, it's not a playback setting.
Exactly. It's about sustainability, it's about focus, and importantly, it's about monotasking.
Monotasking.
Right.
Now, there is a word we frankly do not hear enough in 2026.
Yeah.
I feel like my entire waking life is defined by how many tabs I have open across 3 different screens.
And that's exactly the problem slow media is trying to solve. The movement really coalesced around 2010 as a reaction to the massive acceleration of news distribution, specifically the rise of Twitter, or X as it's known now.
Sure.
The idea was that real-time information is fundamentally overwhelming. It creates this state of constant partial attention. You're never fully reading the article. You're just scanning the headline while you're checking your email, while you're half watching a video in the corner of your screen.
Guilty as charged. I do that every day.
We all do. But slow media says stop. Focus on one thing. Do it with actual depth.
The sources mention a specific slow media manifesto. Who actually wrote that down?
That was penned by Sabria David, Benedict Kohler, and Jörg Blumtritt. They outline several core pillars in this manifesto, but the ones most relevant to our discussion on reality TV today are focus, discourse, attachment, sociality, and quality.
Okay, I want to break those down a bit because attachment really stands out to me. Usually, media feels entirely disposable today. You scroll past a video on TikTok or Instagram, and it's wiped from your brain in 3 seconds. It's digital confetti.
Digital confetti, yeah, that's fast media. It's explicitly designed to be consumed and discarded instantly. It has zero nutritional value, to go back to that food metaphor.
Right.
Attachment in slow media means you actually form a bond with the content. You sit with it. It respects your time, not by being short, but by offering real depth. And that depth creates a space for discourse, meaning actual conversation, not just a knee-jerk reaction in a comment section.
What about sociality?
Sociality means the media connects people in a meaningful way, rather than just broadcasting at them. It fosters a real community. It's the difference between shouting into a void and sitting in a circle with people.
It's interesting because the source material explicitly places this manifesto in the context of the post-digital society. It references the era of Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning. And just to be clear, we're not taking a political stance on those figures here. We are just reporting how the academic source frames this period.
Right, of course.
The source uses them to highlight this idea that we were completely overwhelmed by surveillance and information overload.
Yes, and that historical context is crucial here. The argument is that in a world where absolutely everything is tracked, everything is instant, and everything is overwhelmingly loud, the ultimate luxury, and maybe the ultimate act of rebellion, is to disconnect from the feed and reconnect with something substantial. It's about actively reclaiming your attention span.
There's also a really interesting note in the stack about slow journalism in Spain and Latin America. Is that essentially the same thing?
It's a fascinating parallel, yeah. The research shows that even though the vast majority of people consume fast news, the headlines, the tweets, the push alerts, there's a distinct, albeit niche, desire for slow journalism.
Like long-form investigative stuff.
Exactly. This is reporting that takes months to produce, it's fact-checked rigorously, and it really focuses on narrative and context.
But is it actually sustainable as a business model? Because I have to imagine that costs a whole lot more to produce than just having an intern aggregate tweets.
That is the major barrier. The willingness to pay remains a huge hurdle. People are very willing to pay for fast convenience, but getting them to open their wallets for slow quality is a much harder sell in the news business. However, and this is the pivot, it seems like, in the world of entertainment, people are buying into it.
Which brings us perfectly to our case study for this deep dive. Because while we might hesitate to pay $20 for a slow news magazine, millions of us are paying for our Netflix subscriptions specifically to watch The Boyfriend.
Let's dive into it.
So for those who haven't been online much in the last month, maybe you've been practicing extreme slow media yourself. The Boyfriend is billed as Japan's first same-sex dating reality show.
Yes.
Now, season 1 was a big hit. It was quite summery, very beachy, standard reality TV fare in a way. But season 2, which just finished on February 3rd, has become a genuine cultural phenomenon.
It really has, and the setting is a massive part of that success.
Let's set the scene for the listener. Season 1 was a beach house. Sun, skin, pool, cocktails. But season 2, they moved the entire production to a snowy winter retreat in Hokkaido.
And that visual shift is absolutely crucial to understand. Think about the psychology of a beach setting in reality TV.
It's very exposed.
Right. It's exposed, it's loud, it's all about displaying the body, it's about heat and friction. Moving to Hokkaido, to this isolated winter lodge, changes the entire sensory experience for the viewer and the cast.
Cozy. It feels very insular.
Exactly. We are moving from the party vibe directly to a domestic vibe. The snow literally dampens the ambient sound. The characters are bundled up in these thick layers. It forces the drama, if you can even call it that, to turn inward. It becomes deeply introspective.
The show is described in our notes as having a non-hurried vibe. The Los Angeles Blade and that sociological analysis from Abstract AF really hammer this home. This isn't Western reality TV. It feels fundamentally different.
It feels different because the underlying mechanics of the show are designed purely around slow media principles. Let's look at the structure. First off, you have the green room.
Right, the green room. This is the house they live in together. But it's not just a set, is it?
No, it's a temporal space. In shows like Love Island or even The Bachelor, the filming schedule is incredibly intense and condensed. They might film an entire season of television in 3 or 4 weeks. It's a sprint to the finish line.
Wow, yeah.
But here, in The Boyfriend, the participants live together for 2 full months.
2 months. That is an absolute eternity in reality TV time.
It really is, and that duration changes the entire psychological landscape. When you only have 3 weeks, the producers have to manufacture conflict, they have to drop these bombshells into the villa, they have to force awkward dates. But when you have 2 months, you can just let them live.
That allows for what the sources refer to as domestic reality.
Precisely. It's no longer about, will you accept this rose while standing in front of a helicopter? It's about, who is going to do the dishes tonight? Or who wakes up early to make everyone breakfast? It's about the everyday friction of actual living, which is where real adult relationships are actually tested.
And then there was the coffee truck.
Yeah.
I have to say, I am completely obsessed with the coffee truck. I think I spent half the season just wishing I could buy a latte from that specific truck.
The peppermint coffee truck. It is such a brilliant television mechanic, and it is totally unique to this slow format.
How well?
Well, in most dating shows, you win a date by winning a challenge. And usually it's something highly physical or something slightly humiliating, like wrestling in a pool of jelly or answering trivia questions about your partner's exes in front of everyone.
Right. It's highly gamified romance.
Exactly. Here, the challenge is that you literally have to run a small business together.
It's a job. They have to work shifts.
It is actual labor. The sociological source refers to it as a liminal space for shared labor. Think about the difference in the relational dynamic. When you go on a fancy candlelit dinner date, you are performing. You are staring directly at each other across a table, trying your hardest to be charming. It's face to face.
Very high pressure. But in the truck.
Right. In the truck, it's shoulder to shoulder. You are working together toward a common goal, serving the customers. You get to see how the other person handles real stress. You see how they politely talk to strangers. You see how they react when they accidentally spill milk everywhere.
It completely grounds the romance in the mundane reality of life.
It does. And remember that slow media value of focus we talked about earlier. The coffee truck forces that focus. You are focusing strictly on the task, grinding the beans, pouring the water, and the person standing right beside you. No phones, no external distractions. It creates a bond that is based on actual partnership, not just immediate physical attraction.
Let's talk about the cast of Season 2, because the diversity of age and experience here is a huge part of the story. We aren't just looking at a house full of 20-something models and influencers who are desperately looking for a fast fashion brand deal.
No, the casting was very intentional and very grounded. It covers a wide spectrum of life stages. You have Ryuki, for example, who is a 20-year-old university student. He fits the vulnerable youth archetype perfectly. He's still very much figuring himself out.
But then you have Kazuyuki.
Kazuyuki is fascinating. He's 40 years old. He works in telecom sales.
A 40-year-old on a mainstream dating show feels almost revolutionary in itself. Usually, if you are over 30 on these shows, you are treated like the ancient grandpa or grandma of the group.
It does feel revolutionary, and his backstory carries a lot of weight. He's re-entering the dating world after a 15-year relationship ended. That adds a level of gravity to the proceedings that you just don't get with a cast entirely made up of 22-year-olds. He's clearly not there for Instagram followers. He's genuinely trying to figure out if he can find love again at this stage in his life.
Then you have Hiwei, the Thai judo athlete.
Right, the sensitive athlete archetype.
It really breaks the mold for me. You see judo athlete on the screen, and your brain automatically thinks, okay, tough guy.
Right. He's very physically imposing. I mean, he's a national level athlete, but he completely rejects that macho stereotype. He's incredibly gentle, thoughtful, soft-spoken.
And we also have Bomi, the pure romantic of the group.
Yes.
And we absolutely have to mention the twist. The sources allude to a pretty dramatic reunion involving old flames.
Ah, yes, the old flames twist. Isaiah, one of the participants, actually encounters someone in the house that he has a past romantic connection with. Now, think about how a Western reality show would handle that exact scenario.
Oh, it's obvious. The producers would hide them in a secret closet until the absolute most dramatic moment possible, release them during a party, and cue the intense suspense music and the screaming.
Exactly. They would completely weaponize their shared history for shock value. But here, because of the green room duration, those 2 months, they just let it happen. The producers don't intervene. The guys just have to live through the awkwardness naturally.
They kind of talk it out.
Yes, they have to have the uncomfortable, quiet conversations. It creates organic tension, not manufactured drama. And it resolves through mature conversation, not through someone dramatically packing their bags and being eliminated.
One thing that really struck me from the Los Angeles Blade article was the broader cultural impact. They included this quote from Huey saying, "When I was in middle school, the word gay didn't exist."
That is such a powerful statement. And it reminds us that for all our talk of media aesthetics and cute coffee trucks today, this show is doing incredibly heavy political and cultural lifting. The show isn't just passive entertainment, it is active visibility.
Yeah.
The LA Blade really emphasizes that the core underlying message of the show is simply, it's not wrong to be gay.
It sounds like such a simple baseline, but when you put it in the context of Japanese media,
Well, right. And just to impartially report the context the sources provide in Japan, same-sex marriage is still an ongoing legal and political battleground, though the sources note there have been some positive court rulings recently. But generally speaking, queer representation in mainstream Japanese media has often been limited to comedic caricatures or deep tragedy. So just seeing these normal men exist, be polite, do domestic chores, cook dinner together, and just be happy, that is a radical act of television.
and we have to talk about the panelists. Because unlike Western shows where you might have a host who just pops in wearing a suit to announce eliminations, the boyfriend has a studio panel that actually watches the show with us.
Right. You have big celebrities like Megumi and Durian Lollobrigida watching the footage right along with the audience at home. Durian, who is a very prominent drag queen, acts as a really crucial bridge here. The sources specifically call them interpreters.
Interpreters in what sense? Like
Well-
translating the emotion.
Exactly. They contextualize what is happening for the non-LGBTQ plus audience tuning in. They explain the subtle nuances of queer culture in Japan, or they break down why a certain small interaction between two of the men might carry way more emotional weight than it seems on the surface.
The Reddit threads in our stack actually mentioned that the Korean dating show, his man doesn't have a studio panel, and the users really felt the difference.
It changes the viewing experience entirely. The panel validates the emotions of the viewer. When the panelists cry, and they do cry, quite often actually it implicitly gives the audience permission to feel that deep emotion too.
It's that sociality pillar again.
Exactly. It creates that sociality aspect of slow media. You aren't just sitting in your living room watching alone. You feel like you are watching in a circle of empathetic friends.
Okay, I want to bridge this into our next section. We've talked extensively about the slow mechanics, the 2 months of time, the labor of the truck, the empathy of the panel. But there is a very specific visual and behavioral aesthetic here that the internet is currently calling the soft boy. And I feel like I see this exact term absolutely everywhere now.
This is where the sociological analysis gets really, really interesting.
So we have this source from Lemonade, which, by the way, if you don't use it, is an absolute gold mine for trend watching, breaking down the boyfriend-shaped aesthetic. And it specifically mentions Stray Kids, looking at Felix as the absolute pinnacle of this look.
The soft boy aesthetic is fascinating to sociologists because it is a direct, intentional rejection of what academia calls hegemonic masculinity.
Hegemonic masculinity. Let's unpack that term for a second. That's basically the traditional man's man archetype, right?
Exactly. Think of the archetype that has completely dominated Western media for decades upon decades. Muscled, bearded, stoic, highly emotionally unavailable, and perhaps a bit aggressive.
The Marlboro Man.
The Marlboro Man. The 80s action hero. The guy who solves complex emotional problems by throwing a punch or walking away.
The alpha.
Right, the alpha male. The soft boy completely flips that script. Visually, as the Lemonade source details so well, it's all about oversized clothing, soft, comforting textures, think thick knitwear, big cardigans, and generally looking comfortable and approachable.
The key phrase was cute and casual.
Yes, cute and casual, but it goes way deeper than just the clothes. You can't just put a fluffy cardigan on a jerk and magically make him a soft boy.
Right. The attitude has to match the sweater.
Exactly. The Global Aesthetic of Vulnerability paper argues that the true soft boy is defined by high emotional intelligence, active vulnerability, and a conscious rejection of traditional aggressive gender performance.
So how do we actually see that behavior playing out in the boyfriend?
Well, just think about how the men interact with each other in the house. They are incredibly polite, they are soft-spoken, they actively prioritize each other's physical and emotional comfort. There is a specific note in the source material highlighting that they ask for each other's pronouns right away. That is a massive hallmark of the soft boy aesthetic inclusivity and respect as a default setting.
It's that green room behavior we talked about. They aren't constantly posturing for the cameras. They aren't chest beating. They aren't trying to aggressively dominate the conversation at the dinner table.
And this creates what the sociologists in our stack call a demand matrix, essentially asking, who is this aesthetic actually for? Because it's not just for gay men consuming queer media. It turns out it appeals enormously to two massive demographic groups simultaneously: straight women and gay men.
Which at first glance seems like a slightly odd pairing for a target audience.
It does, but look at the shared psychological motivation. Both of those groups are often deeply tired of toxic masculinity. Straight women are frequently disenchanted with aggressive, emotionally closed-off men. They want the safety, the peace, and the emotional availability that the soft boy archetype promises. They want a partner who actively listens, who is gentle, who is safe.
And what about the gay men in the audience?
Gay men are often looking for a reprieve from the hypersexualized, extremely body image-obsessed culture that can dominate parts of the gay dating scene. The soft boy offers a way to be a desirable man without having to be intensely butch or wildly camp. It's a comfortable third way of existing.
This brings up the concept of the kawaii lens that the sources mention.
Yes. The audience views these men through a distinct filter of cuteness. Kawaii being the Japanese culture of cuteness. They want to protect these men. It's a nurturing gaze rather than a purely sexual, objectifying one. It turns a viewer into a supportive caretaker rather than just a hungry consumer of drama.
Which leads us directly into this massive clash of cultures. We have this soft boy, slow media approach rising in the East, specifically in Japan and Korea. And then we have the dominant Western reality TV model. And the contrast between the two could not possibly be starker.
The clash is absolute. They are essentially operating on completely different operating systems.
I call it speed run versus slow burn.
That is the perfect terminology for it. Just look at Love Island or The Bachelor. It is a literal speed run. You go from strangers to an engagement ring in a matter of weeks. There's forced recoupling, meaning if you aren't coupled up by Friday night, you get kicked off the island. It is a ruthless competition for resources.
And the resource is a human being.
Or a cash prize at the end. Or, let's be honest, lucrative Instagram sponsorships. But the underlying mechanic driving the whole show is extreme scarcity. The show tells you there are not enough men or women to go around, so you must fight tooth and nail for one right now. The breakup rates post-show for these Western franchises are absolutely astronomical because the relationships are forged in a highly unnatural pressure cooker.
Contrast that directly with the boyfriend or his man.
The Eastern, or slow model. First of all, participation is entirely voluntary. You can pack up and leave if you aren't feeling it. There is absolutely no forced coupling. In The Boyfriend, you don't even have to date anyone. You can just hang out and be friends.
Wait, really? I want to make sure the listener taught that. You can go on a high-budget reality dating show and just make a platonic friend.
Yes, and people actually do it. The primary goal framed by the show is self-discovery and connection, not just desperately acquiring a romantic partner to survive the next elimination round.
There was a really great Reddit thread referenced in our stack where a user named ThrowRajames, great username, quoted a specific line from his Man Season 2. And I really think the single line summarizes the entire difference between these two TV cultures. Yoongi says to his love interest, "If you like me 1% more after our date, can I get 99 more dates?"
Oh, that line absolutely destroys me. It gives me goosebumps every single time I hear it.
It's so unbelievably good. Can I get 99 more dates?
Good. Think about the relational economics of that sentence. It's a massive investment in time. It's not, will you marry me tomorrow on national television? Or will you go to the fantasy suite tonight? It's, can we build this slowly? Can we take the long road together?
The Menton Times source we have, the article titled, "Is Romance Dead?", argues that Western shows actually trigger deeply insecure attachment patterns in the audience.
And psychologically, that makes total sense. If you are constantly afraid that someone... Exactly. When Ryuki, the 20-year-old student we talked about, openly cries in the house about his past struggles, he isn't mocked by the other men. He isn't seen as weak or unhinged. He is immediately comforted. The whole group physically rallies around him. That clearly signals to the audience at home that having big, messy feelings is safe and acceptable.
Visually, too, the difference is just night and day. Western shows are all neon lights, tiny bikinis, harsh sunlight, high glamour. The Boyfriend Season 2 is soft pastel colors, diffused natural light, falling snow, oversized cozy sweaters.
It's a deliberate sensory detox. It physically calms the nervous system of the viewer. You watch Love Island to get your heart rate up and get hyped. You watch The Boyfriend to calm your anxiety down before bed.
And here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly maybe a little bit uncomfortable for fans of the genre. It is not all sunshine and peppermint coffee. There is a definite dark side to this kawaii lens.
There always is. Whenever we socially elevate a specific aesthetic, we inevitably create a trap for the real people involved.
Let's dive into the fujoshi culture mentioned in the sociological source. Now, for listeners who might not be deep into anime or internet culture and don't know this term, what exactly are we talking about here?
So fujoshi is a Japanese term. Historically, it was actually a self-deprecating term meaning rotten girl, but today it primarily refers to the massive demographic of female fans who consume boys' love, or BL media. That includes manga, anime, and novels specifically focused on male-male romance.
And BL is a truly massive global genre now.
Huge, a multi-million-dollar industry. But the critical key here is that BL is fiction. It follows very specific, very rigid tropes. There's usually a defined top and a bottom, a strong protector, and a fragile protected character. It's a highly structured fantasy script designed for consumption.
And the serious problem arises when this fictional fandom lens is applied to real, breathing human beings on an unscripted reality show.
Correct. When hardcore BL fans watch a show like The Boyfriend, they often subconsciously or sometimes consciously try to aggressively force the real participants into these fictional two-dimensional boxes. They desperately want them to act exactly like the stylized characters in their favorite manga.
So they're basically casting them in their heads, like,
Yes.
okay, you're the sensitive one, you're the strong, silent one, don't deviate from that.
Yes, and this directly leads to dehumanization. The source points out that when participants inevitably don't fit the cute and innocent mold perfectly, the fan backlash is shockingly severe. Take, for example, William or Isaiah in Season 2. They are a bit older, maybe a bit more direct in their communication style. They have what the sociological source politely calls adult conversations.
Meaning they might talk openly about sex or personal disagreements or setting boundaries in a way that isn't particularly cute or perfectly packaged.
Exactly. And when they do that normal adult thing, the extreme fans immediately label them as toxic because they're breaking the fantasy illusion. If a fictional character in a BL manga acted outside of the established script, you'd be annoyed with the author. But here, they are getting furiously annoyed at a real human being simply for being complex and three-dimensional.
The Reddit threads in our stack were absolutely wild about this specific issue. There are actual coordinated fan wars happening. Fans of his man maliciously fighting with fans of The Boyfriend online.
It's pure internet tribalism, and it gets genuinely dangerous. There are documented reports in the sources of severe harassment and even literal death threats against reality TV participants who sank a ship.
Sank a ship, meaning they chose not to date the specific person the internet fans wanted them to date.
Exactly. Just pause and imagine receiving actual death threats in your inbox because you realized, off camera, that you weren't romantically compatible with your coworker at the coffee truck. It highlights a really dark paradox in modern media consumption. We loudly say we want reality, but we actually want to consume it as a controlled fantasy. We desire the soft boy, but only if he rigidly stays within the exact kawaii script we've written for him in our heads.
It's like we demand total authenticity, but we violently punish any real complexity.
That is the perfect way to phrase it. We desperately want the curated aesthetic of authenticity. We want the cozy sweater, the perfectly lit, tearful confession, but we really don't want the messy, uncomfortable, boring reality of human rejection or basic incompatibility. We want the green room to be this pristine, safe space, but only if the actual people inside it behave exactly how we dictate.
I want to zoom out a bit now as we look at the whole picture. We've focused very heavily on The Boyfriend today, and rightly so. It's a defining show of the moment. But the Los Angeles Blade source gives us a really great comprehensive overview of the broader reality TV landscape in 2026. Because it's important to note, it's not all slow and gentle out there. We haven't replaced all the loud, chaotic TV with quiet snow.
No, absolutely not. And frankly, it shouldn't be all quiet. Diversity in media is key to a healthy cultural diet. We naturally need different emotional energies for different moods.
We have RuPaul's Drag Race still going incredibly strong. Anya Nerve, the season 17 winner, has a brand new talk show out called Hello, Hello, Hello.
Right. And that show represents the loud, fun, highly performative, unapologetically celebratory side of queer media. It's incredibly high energy. It's drag. It's explicitly meant to be a massive spectacle. And that is essential representation, too.
Then we have Heated Rivalry.
Yes, the scripted show focusing on the hockey players Hudson Williams and Connor Story. Now, that show represents the very steamy, highly sexual side of queer media. It's all about intense physical passion. It's about the body and desire.
And there's also Open to It, which deals very openly with non-monogamy.
Right. So when you look at it, the landscape right now is incredibly rich and varied. We have the party energy with Drag Race. We have the passion with Heated Rivalry, the exploration with Open to It. And now, finally, with the massive success of The Boyfriend, we have the Peace Quadrant.
The Peace Quadrant. I really like that categorization.
It just proves that the queer experience, and honestly, the broader human experience, isn't just one note. The absolute blockbuster success of The Boyfriend Season 2, its quick renewal, and its massive crossover success in really key international markets like China and Korea just proves there was a massive starving hunger for that specific peace quadrant that wasn't being fed.
It fills a real, tangible gap in our media diet.
It fills the gap left by the sheer exhaustion of navigating the modern world. We have enough noise screaming at us all day. Sometimes at the end of the week, we really just want to sit on our couch and watch someone quietly make a cup of peppermint coffee.
So, bringing this all back to our original mission for today's deep dive. We started with a rather academic manifesto about slow media, written way back in 2010. And we somehow ended up inside a coffee truck in the snow in Hokkaido in 2026.
We covered a lot of ground, yeah.
To quickly recap for the listener, we moved from fast media, the endless Twitter doom scroll, the Love Island frantic speedrun, to slow media, which prizes monotasking, emotional sustainability, and genuine vulnerability.
We moved from mindlessly consuming content to actively seeking connection with real people.
And we identified the soft boy not just as a fleeting fashion trend involving oversized cardigans, but as a deep sociological reaction to a high-pressure, overly aggressive world.
A total rejection of the alpha in favor of just being human.
I want to end today with your final insight on the green room concept. You mentioned much earlier in the show that it's essentially a metaphor.
I really think it is. The green room in The Boyfriend is a physical space where time essentially stops. There are no phones ringing, no urgent work deadlines, no frantic producer interventions. It's just living. And I think the reason this specific show resonates so deeply with the listener, with you, with me, with millions of people, is because we all secretly, desperately crave a green room in our own lives.
We crave the societal permission to just stop.
We crave a safe space where we can foster real connections without a ticking clock or a deadline, where we can work on a mundane task like making coffee or folding laundry simply for the quiet joy of doing it alongside someone else. Slow media, at its core, isn't about being boring or slow for the sake of it. It's about being human in a digital age that constantly tries to strip that humanity away from us for profit. It's about taking the radical step of reclaiming our own time.
That is beautifully said. And honestly, it makes me want to put my phone in a drawer for the entire rest of the day.
I highly recommend doing exactly that.
Well, I have one final provocative thought for our listeners to take with them into their week. We talked extensively about the kawaii lens and the massive societal demand for the soft boy aesthetic. So my question to you is this. If we loudly claim to demand authenticity from our reality stars and from the people in our own daily lives, why do we so harshly punish them when they stop being perfectly cute and start being complex, messy, disagreeing humans?
That really is the defining question.
Are we actually watching these shows for deep human connection? Or are we just watching for a comforting, curated aesthetic that doesn't actually challenge us?
If you can figure out the answer to that, you will completely solve the paradox of modern fandom.
Something to really mull over while you drink your coffee slowly this Sunday. Thank you so much for diving deep with us today.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
We'll see you next time.